Hi, this is Daniel from TrustGraph, and today I'm going to talk about our new MCP integration and some of our new agent tools available in TrustGraph 1.1. I'm using our latest release, which is 1.1.10, and this is the latest documentation on the TrustGraph documentation site. All links, of course, will be down in the description below. In this how-to guide, we have all the basic information you need to get a very small and simple MCP server running locally and see how the agent tools interact with this data being hosted by the MCP server. And not only that, how it enables it to still communicate with data created in knowledge graphs in our traditional knowledge graph ingest process using TrustGraph. So I've got all this already set up. I've already gone through and loaded some sample documents. I already have this MCP server up and running. It's a very simple server. It allows us to get the current time. It has some prices for some buying some Teslas if you were interested in the UK, perhaps. And then it even has a hypothetical bank balance for a person interested in buying one of these Teslas. And here's the instructions on how to get this little server up and running. This is what you should see. Now, here are the instructions on how to configure the MCP tools in TrustGraph, which I've already done. If I go over to the workbench, you'll see we go down to the MCP tools section. Voila, we have some of these tools. It's simple enough to go through the instructions. We can do it through the command line, or we can just click this button. And at this point, the tool ID and the remote name need to be the same. We're working on making this a little bit more straightforward. There's still some inconsistencies in the naming conventions and the platform IDs and how this is getting kind of um, communicating throughout the system. So we want to make that a little bit more straightforward. So look for some updates for that, coming soon as well. So right now, the remote name, which if we go back, we'll look and see those are things like get Tesla list prices, get current time, get bank balance. Those would go in our tool ID remote name. And then also because we're running this locally, and of course, TrustGraph is fully containerized, and I'm using Docker, we need to use this URL because we set up the MCP server to utilize port 9870. If you are using Podman, for instance, on Linux, you would use this URL instead. So we have those already set up. Now, if we go to agent tools, you'll see, wow, look at all of these. We have a lot of stuff going on here. We have 4 different types of tools now. We go down here, we'll see knowledge query, which of course is going to query whatever knowledge graphs are loaded into the system. We have a direct LLM request. We have a prompt template, which allows you to pass variables into an LLM prompt. Or we have the MCP tools. And if you select MCP tool, we'll go down here and you'll be able to select one of those to match to the tools. Creating a tool for the MCP connectors allows the agent to utilize these. So right now, TrustGraph is more of an agentic system than multi-agent. That's something we're working on, is adding that feature as well to create that distinction. So right now, think about this as we're creating a large set of tools that can be called in any of these requests. Now I'm going to give you I'm going to show you some examples of that. Now, there is a drawback. One thing you have to be careful of is these requests can create very large prompts. Um, because they have a long history that has to be maintained and what the tools are calling, and potentially the tools are even pulling a lot of data. If you're trying to use a small LLM with a relatively small context window, this can exceed that, which means you would probably get JSON parse errors because the JSON that's being returned wouldn't be complete and kind of get broken in half. So that's something to be really mindful of, is that, and this is any struggle with any sort of agentic flow, is that how do you piecemeal these workflows, these tasks in a way that isn't that it will be reliable. And this is all stuff when we have coming soon some big updates in that regard as well. So right now, think about this as being more of an agentic flow as opposed to multi-agent at the moment. Just at the moment, though. If I go here to the library, you'll see that we already have some documents loaded. And I've already processed them. So I've already processed this one, and that's going to come into account here in a second. Matter of fact, if I go here and I talk about um, global surveillance, for instance, not even sure I spelled it right, you'll see that we do have information loaded in the system already. If I go here and click about the NSA, for instance, see lots of knowledge graph triples, and we can see there's lots of information loaded in the system about the NSA and all of its connections to other sorts of entities based on that one document. Another change is you'll notice that the chat now has three options. We have GraphRAG, which is our typical GraphRAG request. This would only make a request on what's loaded in the system right now. So that one document about global surveillance, it would only ask questions. It would only query that. And if it doesn't find anything in that document, the request will basically say, I didn't find anything. I can't really answer your question. We have hitting the LLM just directly, or we have our agentic flow. So let's think about some of the things we have loaded in the system. We have a bank account and we have a price list. So of Tesla. So I could ask the system, can I afford to buy a Model 3? And we'll see we immediately pulled up the price list from the MCP server. We pulled up my bank account. And as you can see, no, I cannot buy a Model 3. So what are some other things that we could do here? Well, I mean, we could get crazy, but let's see if we can get all these things to write a joke, because we have a tool about a joke, don't we? Yeah, we do. We have a tool about a joke. So how many of these things can we combine in a single request? Let's see. Let's write a joke about my bank balance, the current time, the Teslas I can afford to buy, and the current state of global surveillance. As you can also see, we do have an agent tool that's going to query the knowledge graph. So we have that right here. We go back up here and we're going to hit enter. And I'm using Mistral Medium 3 at the moment for all these requests. And as you can see, we've already pulled my bank account, the current time, and the Tesla data. And this is all from the MCP server that I have running locally. And now we're finishing up the request. Here we go. We want to save that. Just want to show you, this is based on the knowledge statement. So this has made a GraphRAG request. This has actually gone into the knowledge graph and found what information is in there about that's relevant to this request. And so combining all that information, we have my bank account balance, which is coming from the MCP server. We have the current time, which was coming from the current time. Here it is. And there we go. It says I can buy half a Tesla wheel while Big Brother watched and laughed because my financial dreams are under surveillance. Don't know if that's funny, but that's not on us. That's on Mistral. But this is an example of how all these tools can come together now and create an agentic system using MCP. And we see a huge amount of potential with connecting MCP to TrustGraph for ingesting different data sources and creating agentic structures. In addition, we are looking into creating multi-agent and creating access controls for all this. And as always, if there's something you'd like to see in this feature set, please let us know. Let us know in the comments below. Drop into our Discord, say hi, give us some feedback. All the links are down below. Much more coming soon.